So we've received quite a few teachings on precious human life and the 8 worldly concerns recently, which I found very helpful in terms of being a wake-up call around, am I using my life in a very meaningful way? And also at this time in history, across the world, the disadvantages of samsara are quite vivid in terms of sickness and death, coming into contact with things that we don't want, being separated from things that we love and cherish. Thinking of ventilators, of masks that we can't get, being separated from our family, through the shutdown and isolation, or through death itself. So a lot of COVID has brought these disadvantages home in Technicolor. And so naturally there's a lot of grief that comes with this. Grief for the sheer loss of life, the loss of livelihood, of connection and companionship. And as some people shared in the discussions group we had on the retreat on the weekend, just grieving for a sense of normalcy, of things that, of how things were before. And so Venerable Jigme gave a nice BBC a short while ago on grief in terms of related specifically to the pandemic. So that's not what I want to talk about here. But I was thinking about grief that comes up just with Dharma practice in general. And I'm not saying that grief comes as a byproduct of Dharma practice, but I have seen within myself that grief has arisen as I practice and in a process of letting go. And so one definition or idea around grief is just mourning the loss, or mourning things that we didn't, let me start again. Grief as things coming unexpected and mourning our expectations of things that were meant to come. So things happen that we didn't expect, or things like that. And as I look at my own growing pains, in terms of the internal transformation and the adjustments that I'm trying to make in terms of putting the Dharma into practice in my own life, certain grief has arisen. And I think many of us have talked about the different changes that have happened as we practice, in terms of letting go of how friendships or relationships used to be as we transform, and friends or family no longer relate to us in the same way as they used to, or just our interests change. And so our way of socializing and interacting with the world changes. And while we're happy with how we're going, there's also this uncomfortable period I found of adjusting to this new person that I'm becoming. And I know that when I was made a more clear decision to enter into monastic life and to put Dharma as the main priority, a few friends weren't very supportive and kind of cut off contact. And that was incredibly painful because I still valued them as people and wanted to keep that connection. But when there was nothing much to do except to kind of bring in acceptance around the situation and work with it. And also with these changes, there's a lot of joy that comes as well, as we have an increased sense of integrity and consideration for others, seeing that in our lives, and the peacefulness that comes with that, as we're living more in accord with our values, and see that our mind is more happy and content, and that we are able to benefit others more clearly as well. And then we might come to a time in our practice where there's a bit of normalcy or routine. We have a daily practice schedule, we have a community that we're practicing with, or a supportive Dharma center that we're going to, we have relationships and support. And things kind of, there's ups and downs day to day, but there is some sense of normal or comfortableness. And within that scope, I've been surprised sometimes around the grief that has arisen in this sense of, I'm comfortable here. And I think the grief is around a loss of faith in samsara, in terms of belief that samsaric pleasures will bring me happiness, or that I can find something, someone, something, some idea out there that will give me the happiness that I'm seeking. And to really recognize clearly, like, it's not out there. I found it very painful because all the conditioning that I've received in this life alone has directed me to look out. And so this came up really strongly during retreat at one point, where, you know, there's the silence and there's the routine doing the same thing day in, day out, not much distraction. And just seeing the mind and how it just wants to go out and grab things. Ideas, people's memories, lots of memories are coming out for me, and seeing all the times that it didn't work. This relationship didn't work, this attitude didn't work, this way of trying to relate to people didn't work, this type of food didn't work, this body isn't working, yes, even at my age. And yeah, just to actually let that in. And I felt just really a lot of sadness. It was like, wow, I have to let this go. And a song came to mind one point when it was really pertinent for me. I still haven't found what I'm looking for by U2. I grew up with U2, I quite like. And that song is quite, I find, beautiful and very mournful, but it's just like, oh, it's like, I feel this. It's like, no matter how hard I try, out there I still can't find what I'm looking for. It was good. I wallowed in that a little bit, but I think it was slightly helpful. But just letting go of that external referencing. And yeah, seeing that there is no place to turn except inside. And that's a little bit scary, actually, to be honest. It's like, wow, the mind is the source of happiness and pain, and the only person that can work with my mind is me. And then, relating this back to the 8 worldly concerns that we've been receiving teachings on, it very much comes down to working with the mind. And I've been reading slowly in conjunction with the teachings that Venerable was given, both from Foundation of Buddhist Practice and Parting from the 4 Attachments, a book, How to Practice Dharma by Lama Zopa Rinpoche, where I think it's a collection of all the teachings he gave in the first few Kopan courses on the 8 worldly concerns. And there's a lot of gems in there. And one thing that he says is that objects aren't themselves a problem. The objects become a problem for us because of our emotional mind of desire. When our mind is controlled by desire, neither having nor not having an object can bring anything but dissatisfaction. And I can see this, and it's shocking at some point to really take that in. It's like, if my mind is just wanting to grab, the mind wanting to grab is painful, then not having it's painful, and then even when I grab it and get it, for a mere moment I might have a fleeting hit of some happiness, and then after that I'm back to wanting to grab again. So there's no relief in that. And in that book, Lama Zopa quotes Lama Tsongkhapa from the Lamrim Chemo, saying that we follow desire in the hope of getting satisfaction, but following desire leads only to dissatisfaction. And this is just crazy, really, to see that we want so much happiness, and yet the means that we use to get it bring us the complete opposite result of what we're wanting. And personally, I'll do it again and again and again, and I don't seem to learn. Or I don't learn as quickly as I would like. I'll phrase it that way. I'm learning just slowly. And one thing that I did psychology. I studied psychology at university, and one of the things that they were taught us about was the experiments by Skinner, where they the Skinner boxes, where they the intermittent reinforcement. So the rats that get taught that there's a pellet there, and they tap to get the pellets of food or the sugar water. And it doesn't come every time, but it comes enough that they'll keep pressing frantically because they know that they'll get a hit at some point. And I can see that in myself, where it's like, sometimes the things that I keep grasping for, they'll give me a little bit of the flavor of what I want. But a lot of the time they don't. It's just enough that I keep trying. And so to see this more clearly and then want to let it go. And to turn inside to see that the mind is a source of happiness and pain. And I do have the tools to transform. It's just a matter of effort and humility, I think, as well, and joy in seeing that causes bring results. So that if I do practice, I will see the fruit at some point. And so thinking of grief as well as mourning the loss or mourning unexpected events, to see, well, what expectations do I actually have? What expectations are tripping me up? And this is where I think like the importance of the Lamrim meditations or Lamrim study and meditation, because this is kind of transforming our worldview and transforming the expectations that we have of ourselves and of the world in which we live. And to try and use our intelligence to overcome the distorted ways that we look at the world, particularly for distortions of seeing the impermanent things as permanent, what is foul as beautiful, the unsatisfactory things as being sources of happiness, and what is empty of itself as having a self. And so to use the Lamrim to transform our mind, and particularly to cultivate a perspective that is bigger than just this life. Because I see that where the most pain comes for me is when I'm tunnel visioned and just trapped in just this life, happiness right now. And then also to bring in the idea of our rules of the universe, I think also around expectations and where for me grief arises, where some of my own rules is like things should be neat and tidy in terms of the world. There should be no inconveniences. I should always be happy and content without having to put forth any effort. And I hit up against these rules of the universe or these expectations because that is not what samsara is. And so I just wanted to share this as a way to encourage myself and maybe some of you to use this time of vivid, unsatisfactory conditions to let go, not of our concern for others, not letting go of our compassion or the determination to be of benefit to others, but letting go of our various levels of attachments to this life and to our ideas of what this life should be. So I think that's where, when we're not seeing samsara for what it is, that's where I find the pain arises within myself. And the phrase, what do I expect at samsara, comes to mind. And that in a way seems kind of flippant and could lead you down a way where it's a path of doing nothing. And that's not what I'm advocating. Rather to see clearly the nature of samsara and to use it as fuel for renunciation and bodhicitta, the wish to benefit others, seeing that they're just in such unsatisfactory conditions as we are. And grounded in the view that because nothing possesses a solid inherent self, we can all change and transform into the magnificence of a Buddha and help everyone else do the same.